thank you to everyone for joining us for our session, Keeping Calm in the Chaos. Hopefully a nice stress-free way to end what's been a very busy business festival week. Really pleased to be joined this afternoon by Orley from BioNature Ltd. Hello, Orley, how are you?
Hi, Ben. I'm well, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, really good, thanks. Really good. Really looking forward to having a chat with you this afternoon and hopefully getting some tips and advice on kind of keeping healthy and keeping on top of our own kind of well-being, on top of some of the business advice that we've been getting at various points through the week. Before we do that, though, I'm just going to give you the opportunity to perhaps introduce yourself and the work that you do, Orley.
Great. So hi, I'm a, you can hear from the accent, South African, and I came to the UK 20 years ago, and I practice as a naturopath and homeopathic doctor. So I trained in South Africa, and then I had the opportunity to come to the UK, and I've worked with various companies in the past 20 years. I'm currently with BioNature, which is a wonderful distribution company for supplements and healthy foods. And I also lectured for a while in biomedicine at the College of Naturopathic Medicine. And I spend most of my time now going around advising, teaching, and training on supplements and health and well-being.
Okay, and perhaps you could talk to us just a little bit to begin with about the type of clients that you're seeing at the moment and whether that's changed over the last 12 months, perhaps.
Absolutely. So much has changed in such a short period. It's really no surprise that I'm finding many people are really struggling to adapt to this new normal, which is anything but normal. And then, of course, combined with all the uncertainty, the anxiety that this causes, I would have to say that the majority of questions that I get asked about, the majority of inquiries that I receive are very much stress related.
Okay. And obviously in that situation, I would imagine it's quite difficult to talk in kind of generalizations, because I imagine the causes of stress and the manifestations of those stresses are unique to everybody. But broadly, can you talk at all to how you kind of approach those inquiries and what you kind of say to people in that situation?
Yes, wonderful question, because you're absolutely right. It's essential, it's very important that we start by first appreciating and understanding how our body responds to stress. Then we can use this understanding to better manage stress. So in other words, by being aware of the impact that stress has on our body, we can work more prophylactically and so prevent it from becoming problematic. By being more proactive, we find that it's far easier and more effective to cope with stress, to adapt to change, instead of just being reactive and trying to repair the damage once it's already occurred.
Okay. And you talk about that kind of damage and how literally our bodies kind of respond to that stress and that change within ourselves. How does that kind of come about? What is that kind of process? What does it look like?
So at the core of all stress is a wonderful hormone called cortisol. This is a type of hormone that your body produces to cope with and adapt to chronic or ongoing stress. So initially we have adrenaline and then cortisol takes over. So that's what helps us in chronic stress. So initially, this wonderful hormone makes us feel like we have superpowers and we can do anything and we don't need any sleep and we don't need to eat. We can live on air. But in the long run, unfortunately, cortisol has some very negative effects and consequences.
Okay, can you kind of describe some of the kind of the effects you're talking about, perhaps?
Absolutely. So cortisol's prime directive, the way it keeps us going, the way it makes us feel like we have superpowers and that we can live on air, is that it keeps our blood glucose levels up. And so we've got this constant supply of fuel, because glucose in the blood is fuel for the blood and for the body. So its primary, most important function is to keep blood sugar raised and constantly high. So we've got this constant fuel supply. The other thing that cortisol does is it raises blood pressure. That way, the blood can course through the body very quickly at high pressure, so we can get lots of oxygen, lots of glucose. Okay. Unfortunately, raised blood sugar, raised blood pressure increases the risk for diabetes and heart disease. Cortisol also suppresses digestion.
Okay.
It shunts all the blood away from the digestive organs to the heart, the brain, and the muscles where it's needed most in times of stress. So digestion gets forgotten about, and we see all sorts of digestive issues popping up. The interesting thing with cortisol as well is it actually lowers cognitive functions. How many times have you heard someone saying, I was so stressed, I just couldn't think straight?
Sure.
Or so many times I saw my students coming into exams, they had worked and studied so hard, and then they sit down, they're so stressed, all memory just gone, absolutely blank. So really what a lot of recent studies are showing is that cortisol clouds our thinking, affects our memory and judgment. And ironically, and most importantly, in these times, cortisol lowers our immunity. So stress lowers our immunity and reduces our immune response, which then increases the risk of infection and leaves us with this low-level chronic inflammation, which is at the root of most chronic illness. And then to make matters worse, on top of everything, when we're stressed, anxious, and worried, we tend to fall into bad habits more easily. So we eat more, we sort of looking for comfort foods and carbs, and we drink more, that glass of wine. Oh, what's an extra glass of wine or a beer? I need to relax, I need to enjoy myself. Or if we smoke more. We sleep less, we exercise less. So paradoxically, all of this makes the stress seem even harder to cope with.
Sure. Okay, and presumably, I mean, we're talking about kind of habits and behaviors, I guess, that are hardwired into us, and I suppose are quite difficult, even if you are aware of them and you can kind of acknowledge them in yourself. They're quite difficult sometimes to do anything about. How do you approach that process with people, and what do those kind of steps look like when it comes to, okay, we're going to try and tackle this now and kind of make some productive headway through it all?
Absolutely, great question. So I always say baby steps. Always treat yourself as you would a child.
Sure.
Be kind, understanding, and gentle with yourself. Most of the time we tend to be so hard with ourselves, and we need to start listening to our body and acknowledging that it's okay to be stressed. It's okay to feel anxious or tired or frustrated or all of the above. Now, initially, your body is sending you signals and hormones to help you get through that stress. And then later, if it sees that that stress is just ongoing, it will start to send you signals to alert you to the fact that you just can't sustain this. And so when we listen to our bodies, when we acknowledge the signals, we can make the necessary adjustments as and when they're needed, slowly and gently.
Okay, and what's typically a good place to start, or perhaps a good achievable action point, perhaps for people to take as point one on the list?
Yes. So the good news is there is so much that we can do, and it can so easily be done. It's all down to how you start your day and how you end your day. What happens in between doesn't really matter if you have a good start and a good end. So try to start the day earlier than usual, even if it's just half an hour or an hour earlier. So set your alarm clock a little bit earlier, before most people are up, or the rest of the family or household. This way you'll have time all to yourself. This is so important. In this time, take it slow. Enjoy this time that is all about you.
Sure.
Some people like to go for a walk. Some people prefer to have a gentle jog. Some people prefer to start the day off with a bit of exercise, because by the time the end of the day comes, you're kind of thinking, oh, I'm too tired, I can't be asked.
Yeah, I know that one.
So get all of that out of the way. Get the blood flowing first thing in the morning.
Sure.
Then Another thing that I've had a lot of people do and great feedback on is journaling. So keeping a journal, some experts refer to it as a gratitude journal. I like to call it a happiness or good habits journal.
Okay.
So in this journal, you could list or write about all the things that make you grateful or happy. List all the things you enjoy doing, things that really make you feel good about being you. Things that you can be proud of. Collect inspirational, motivational quotes, messages, and keep them in this journal, and write down all the good suggestions and advice that you've been given and would share with and give to a younger version of you. I always talk about treat your inner child, look after your inner child. And this journaling will not only get you into a positive frame of mind, an energized mindset right at the start of the day, but it'll also give you something good and encouraging to refer back to when you're feeling stressed and need this inspiration the most. I always think of this beautiful quote by Marilyn Monroe, where she said, love me when I least deserve it, because that's when I need it the most.
Sure.
And that's what we need to remind ourselves when we're going through stress and we're feeling anxious.
Okay.
Then, of course, if we're still sort of talking about the beginning of the day, breakfast, I get asked this a lot. What about breakfast? Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. It's really very personal. So I always say breakfast is optional. See how you feel. If you're hungry in the morning and you want to eat, then eat. Listen to your body again. A lot of people I find, they go, oh, I must have breakfast, must have breakfast. So they'll wolf down a muffin, a coffee, some junk, and they won't digest it properly because they're rushing off to work, or they've got a ton of things that they've got to do first thing in the morning when they get into the office, or clock onto their laptops nowadays rather than going into the office. So, some people like to have breakfast at 10 o'clock. Some people have breakfast at 11 o'clock, as long as it's when you're hungry and when you feel you need to eat.
Sure.
And speaking of food, always eat mindfully. So eat slowly, focusing on your food in a relaxing and a conducive environment, not whilst you're looking at the TV or reading something on your phone about the latest, updates, or, it's just literally focus on the food, focus on every bite, enjoy it. And the reason I say this is because you have to be at rest to digest.
Okay.
So as long as you're in a restful state and you're eating slowly, you'll find that your digestion is so much better and that you enjoy the food, and you actually end up eating a lot less.
Okay.
I also like to try to say, plan your meals, plan your food, plan your meals for the week, because when you come home or when you're rushing out or you're logging in, you have to quickly think of something, and you usually make bad choices. So if you plan ahead, then it's less likely that you're going to make bad choices. And of course, just keep the junk food out of the house.
Okay.
This includes sweets, chocolates, cakes, biscuits, ice cream, desserts, beer, anything that you tend to be naughty with. Keeping it out of the house means there's less temptation when you're feeling most vulnerable. Then I would say foods that I would recommend to avoid, or foods that I usually have in moderation, would be anything that's refined, processed, sugary foods, things that are too salty, and of course caffeine.
Sure.
If you're absolutely, you have to have your coffee, I would say no more than 1 cup a day, at least before 12 in the afternoon, and try to have it black without sugar or sweeteners or anything like that, because it can actually be quite good to get your digestion going first thing in the morning. And then foods that I would say enjoy and have to your heart's content, literally and figuratively, whole unrefined foods, fruit, veg, chicken, fish. Go back to basics, go back to what your grandparents and your great-grandparents would have eaten and given you. And always apply the 80-20 rule. So if you're good 80% of the time, it doesn't matter if you're naughty or breaking the rules 20% of the time.
Sure.
Then we come to the evening. This is when we start to unwind. So again, some people like to go for a walk, you know, before dinner. You could go with the kids, the dogs, or someone in your household. Practice some yoga, try some, you know, stretch exercises, anything that just helps the muscles to relax and unwind. And then, you know, maybe put on some soft music, relaxing music while you're cooking. Put some, you know, relaxing oils in a diffuser, or maybe light some scented candles. You know, this is not the kind of thing that we should only do on date nights. So, you know, indulge yourself in all these pleasures. And of course, try not to eat later than 8 p.m. I know that's a big ask. If you're going to be eating after 8 p.m., then make it a soup, make it something very light, very small. And then, of course, this is the most difficult thing, is trying to get to bed at the same time every night.
Sure.
To develop those patterns. Now, this is where I would like to talk about the most potent stress solution of all: sleep.
Okay.
Sleep, if I could bottle it and sell it, I would have the answer to all problems.
You'd be a rich lady.
Oh, absolutely. So why am I so obsessed with sleep, and why do I think it's the answer to everything, especially stress? Because it's how our bodies reset, recharge, and reboot. So
Okay.
all the sins of that day can be completely removed in a good sleep.
Sure.
But of course, this only happens in deep sleep. And many recent studies, this has all been done, especially during lockdown. We've been able to observe people's sleep patterns, you know, people that are able to work from home, so have an afternoon nap, or, you know, go to work, start work later because they don't have to catch the train into work or travel far to get to the office. So they've been doing a lot of sleep research and studies, and they found that the quality of sleep is far more important than the quantity, the amount of sleep that you get.
That's interesting.
Yeah, scientists have identified a new sleep problem that they're now calling shallow sleep syndrome, which results from poor sleep quality.
Okay.
So, you know, as I was saying earlier, so many people, you know, are able to get more sleep than before, but they're coming to me saying that even though they're getting a lot more sleep, they're still waking up feeling unrefreshed and tired. And that's because their sleep was not deep enough to give the body a proper chance to reset, to recharge, or reboot.
Okay.
So what we're saying is, if we only have a little sleep, we need to make sure that it's good quality, deep sleep. And so how do we do that? So there's a few things that we can look at and make sure that we've got right.
Okay.
So trying not to eat too much, too late, so too heavy, too big a meal before you go to sleep. Make sure your bedroom is more like a sanctuary than an office or a chat room. So keep the laptops, the phones, anything work-related out of the room, out of the bedroom.
Okay.
You know, don't look at your phone at night before you go to bed, or your iPad or tablet, or, you know, and see, oh, who said what, where, check out Insta and all of these things. So, you know, keep those things out if you can't. And if you are looking at your iPad or tablet or phone at night before bed, or just before you go to bed, you can actually put your computer screens, your phone screens, your iPad screens onto night shift or night mode. So that removes the blue light that's coming off the screen and changes it into a warmer orangey yellow kind of light, which is very important because sadly there's a lot of blue light that is emitted from laptops, iPhones, and all of these things. And so this blue light stops us from producing melatonin.
Okay.
And melatonin is the sleep hormone. So we call it the hormone of darkness. It's produced in darkness. So if there's a blue light that's coming into our eyes as we're looking at computer screens and laptops and phones, we're not producing melatonin. So setting it to night shift or night mode, there's a beautiful kind of a yellow orangey light that's coming off the computer screen or the laptop or phone, and that helps to produce melatonin. The light that you use in the bedroom as well, you know, you can use warm lights or warm LED bulbs. You can get LED lights with different kelvins, and nothing higher than 3,000. Anything higher than 3,000 has more blue light in it and will keep you awake. So in the bedroom, your lights should be no higher than 3,000 Kelvin. So this creates a very relaxing, cozy kind of atmosphere. Some people like to have a warm bath. You could add some magnesium, relaxing magnesium salts and oils before bed. Some people love using relaxing oils in the room. You can put a few drops on the pillow. Some people use blackout curtains and eye masks, especially in the summertime, because if there's light coming into the room, your melatonin is going to convert back to serotonin, and it's going to give you very light, shallow sleep.
Okay.
There are sleep apps, but again, I'm not a fan of keeping those kinds of things in the bedroom. But there are some wonderful sleep apps out there.
Okay.
And if all else fails, if you've tried all of these things and you're still struggling, that's when I then turn to supplemental support and help. So things like magnesium, L-theanine, avena sativa or oats, passion flower, pure cherry extract. All of these are very wonderful natural things that help you to relax without sedating you, because of course we don't want to sedate you. We just want to give you proper, deep, relaxing sleep when you're ready to sleep.
Sure. I mean, on that subject of kind of relaxing and, you know, treating yourself a bit, I guess you mentioned earlier the subject of comfort food, which I guess is a touchy one. But how do you kind of advise people on those things like kind of wine, chocolate, you know, maybe a tot of something before bed to take the edge off, something like that? You know, how do you kind of advise people kind of build that or not build that into the mix, as it were, as well?
Absolutely. So I'm sure you've heard of the expression, forbidden fruit is always tastier. Well, the more you tell someone that they can't have something, the more they crave it.
Sure.
So instead of saying no and thinking about what we can't have, we need to focus instead on what we can have, and in moderation. Because as long as you keep your vices in moderation, so you keep your vices moderated, you never really have to deny yourself anything. And so this way you can turn something naughty, potentially naughty, into something good and pleasurable, a treat, a real treat, something that your body will thank you for, rather than punishing you as such.
Okay.
And so, you know, again, I know that this is a difficult and it's a big ask, and especially when you're stressed and you think, oh, I could really do with that glass of wine or that piece of chocolate, and one glass of wine just doesn't feel like enough. So, you know, if all resistance crumbles, if all else fails, and you're still finding that you need to have more than just that little treat and you're struggling with the moderation bit, that's again where I do turn to having like a, you know, supplements that can boost, that can lift, you know, that can give you that extra support when you need it. So this way you can actually turn something naughty into something good, a real treat, something pleasurable, something that your body will thank you for, rather than punishing you. And I know that it's still a big ask. I know that when you're really stressed, you're thinking, oh, I just can't stop at that one glass of wine, or, you know, a few, you know, a little bit of chocolate, or I feel like I need more. And moderation is a big ask here. So if you need that extra support, if you feel like, you know, you need an extra helping hand, an extra boost or a lift, there are some amazing and wonderful gifts from nature, like B vitamins, magnesium, and even adaptogenic plants that can help maintain not only your energy levels and your resolve and motivation, but your drive too.
Okay, I'll be honest, I've picked up a few new bits along the way this week during the business festival. Adaptogenic is a new one. Perhaps you could just explain that one for perhaps myself and anyone else that's not come across that term before.
Yes, yes. So things that are adaptogenic, and this is usually plants, or we refer to them as adaptogens, they are natural compounds that help the body to adapt, which is where the word comes from, adapt to change, and so to stress. So any compound that can help your body to adapt to stress, so you're not releasing too much cortisol, excess adrenaline, and so that you feel like you can rise to the occasion and keep going, it's usually referred to as an adaptogenic compound. So my favorite adaptogens are medicinal mushrooms, not just your regular mushrooms. These are very specialized mushrooms that are full of beta glucans that help to boost immunity, which is so important right now. They also help to support and boost energy and protect the body from all the, sort of damage associated with aging and of course stress. Ginseng, rhodiola, holy basil, these are also powerful adaptogens. I'm sure most people have heard of ginseng, and they're revered all over the world for their energizing and supporting qualities, especially in times of stress.
Okay, and you've mentioned a few kind of minerals and particular things that you tend to kind of reach to as a bit of a kind of a go-to pick-me-up, as it were. What are the kind of some of the readily accessible, perhaps easily available things that you can direct people to?
Great. I'm always recommending magnesium. Magnesium is an interesting mineral because it's one of the most difficult minerals to get from the diet in our food. It's one of the most depleted minerals in the soils. And so I do find that, recommending supplementing this or, taking extra magnesium is always good. And magnesium also supports so many important processes in the body, especially muscle relaxation, and everyone needs that. And blood sugar balance. Remember, we were talking earlier about how cortisol raises your blood sugar and increases the risk of diabetes and inflammation. And so magnesium is wonderful at balancing sugar. In fact, it takes 54 molecules of magnesium to process 1 molecule of sugar.
Oh, wow.
So every time you're having something with a little bit of sweetness in it, your body's having to use up so much magnesium. So if we are having more sugar, or if our blood sugar is quite high, it's always good to ensure that we've got enough magnesium to support that. And I don't know where I'd be without my B vitamins and my sunshine vitamin, of course, vitamin D, especially in the wintertime. Those would be my go-tos.
Okay. And presumably these are all things that people can get hold of kind of relatively accessibly anywhere on the high street or online, are they?
Absolutely. Everywhere and anywhere. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. It's quite interesting talking to you this afternoon, because obviously we've kind of chatted for kind of half an hour or so now and talked through a whole range of things. But, stress, personally, and I'm maybe not the only person that's kind of felt like this, it's always, I've always felt like it's more of kind of an internal thing and almost like a head condition, almost, stress, actually, and that you kind of tend to therefore deal with that and kind of work through it as more of a psychological process. But interestingly, all of the things that you've kind of outlined this afternoon have all been the complete opposite of that. They've been very physical things, actually stuff that is very simple, practical, and easy to put into place.
Great, absolutely. And that's sort of the message that I hope to share, that stress, it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. And there is so much that we can do to help the body and support the body and make sure that we, achieve success out of stress, that we succeed rather than let it get us down and think, we're on our own and we have to go through all of this on our own and there's nothing we can do about it. Absolutely. There's so many wonderful things, and it's so manageable and easily manageable as well. And it's all about, looking after yourself, treating yourself, and yeah, So I hope, yes, there's a few little good seeds in there.
Perfect. And perhaps just as a little full stop on our conversation this afternoon, if people wanted to find out more, perhaps pick your professional expertise a little more, or find out a bit more about BioNature, how would people do that? Did you want to kind of shout out your website address, stuff like that?
I could do that. So they could look onto, I would probably say, Terra Nova Health. So if they go onto the internet, if they just look up on, general sort of Terra Nova Health, and in there it will say your local distributor, and the details for BioNature will be under or on one of those pages. Would probably be the easiest. I don't have the BioNature address and details to hand, but if you
that's fine. Well, we can link in the comments and stuff underneath and make sure from the website people are able to find their way through to you. No, that's perfect.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Awesome.
Really,
Well, I've really appreciated your time this afternoon. It's been great chatting with you, and really interesting to find some hopefully practical steps that all of us can be putting into place to make the rest of 2021 hopefully a little less stressful than the first bit of it.
Absolutely. And thank you for the opportunity. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Such a pleasure.